Welcome to JemFest TV.
What's up, guys? Welcome to JemFest TV. I'm Ricky Garcia here in Dortmund for you, doing the first show ever. It's a world premiere. I'm very excited, the first time doing this for you. And yeah, I'm here with my great buddy and TV whatever the word that is for, anchorman. Okay, whatever. Mr. Eric Vandenberg, ladies and gentlemen, JemFest Germany performer, great artist, great guitar player. And actually, Eric is going to tell you what we're going to have for you guys specially arranged today.
Okay, for this very first show of JemFest TV, we got a very special surprise for you. We're going to do an interview with a true master of the guitar. He's an absolutely amazing musician, and of course, I guess you know I'm talking about Mr. Steve Morse. And I'm looking forward to that a lot, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep, thank you so much, Eric. I think, wow, it's going to be a blast, guys. Steve Morse is probably one of the biggest guitar heroes of our time, walking the planet. And, wow, we're very honored to have the opportunity today to talk to him in person. He's actually in the hotel waiting for us to come in. So I think everybody's very nervous. Also, welcome our nice camera guy over there, Mr. Henning Pullman. Hello, Henning. And let's get to the show. See ya. Choo, choo, choo. Yes, so welcome, Mr. Steve Morse. Thank you so much for the pleasure for having this interview with you. It's for JemFest, the charity organization. We're collecting money to support the Make a Noise Foundation for Mr. Steve Morse, for Mr. Steve Vai. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll just try to make this, I don't know how much time you've got, so just let us go. I'd like to start, asking about the current tour with Deep Purple. First of all, how is the tour going so far? I mean, for example, what I would like to know is, this is not the first tour in that lineup with Don Airy, but how do people in the band feel about it? Have they gotten used to it?
Yeah, but Don's been with us for, it seems like, a couple of years by now, and we've done so many gigs during that time that it's just all family. It doesn't feel weird at all. Don's really got great ears. He improvises, instantly and without any hesitation. So we still have that nice communication like I had with John, because he's very quick with his ears. He's got perfect pitch and he has no problem hearing any direction I'm going. The tour is going great, actually. People, they keep coming, and they seem to be bringing some of their friends with them. So it's amazing how.
Are you worried about that? Since John Lord has been in a band ever since the beginning, were you worried that a lot of people just wouldn't go and say, without John Lord, it isn't
Well, I guess our manager asked the promoters, and they said they didn't think it would be a factor, and maybe because the album has come out recently, the Bananas album, for whatever reason, the audience are getting bigger, and it's not because John left; it's because of the album. So it's hard to know what percentage of people would be, disillusioned by John leaving.
One question. You broke your arm about 3 years ago, right?
It was my wrist. Yeah.
Do you still have problems dealing with that? Like, do you still feel it when you play, or is that all, gone?
Well, I messed up some tendons in the process. I broke a couple bones in my wrist, and there's all these little aches and pains that you get over the years. It's been 38 years of playing, which is odd since I'm only 29 years old. Yeah. So it's, things get a little wear and tear on them. But what I do is I work around it by try to warm up good. Everyone's got some of this carpal tunnel stuff if they've been playing or doing anything with their hands for a long time. And I have a lot in the cold weather. It's a little bit of a problem. So I do a lot of stretches, and these kind of stretches to warm up all the muscles here. And I actually massage my wrists to help get the blood moving in the places that it's not naturally wanting to. And washing your hands with warm water actually helps too. Some people don't like to do that because it makes their calluses softer, but I don't worry about it. The calluses are replaceable. Those. If I don't do all that, then I end up playing without feeling in my fingers. That feels funny.
But you never had a problem with carpal tunnel syndrome?
Yeah, I have a problem with it. That's why I'm saying this is what I do to get around it.
But if you haven't gotten to the point where it would need surgery or something. I mean, everybody had that.
Well, it needs surgery for it to go away. That's what the surgeon that was working with me, on the injuries, that's what he said. And I just couldn't imagine paying somebody to tear apart my wrists. I said, forget it. As long as these fingers move.
Okay.
But music is more, what note choices are you going to play? What are you going to, how are you going to fit this part into the band sound to make music out of it? That's really what the emphasis is to me every time we're on stage. I never sit there and think, boy, if I just had a little bit more sensitivity in my wrist, or if I could feel my fingers a little bit better, everything would be fine. I never think about it. Because when you're playing outside, sometimes it's so cold you can't feel your fingers anyway. Right. So it's just about like that.
So you never think about the physical side of that, like where you worry that some parts that you would like to play and that you usually could play, you can't play because of, anything like the carpal tunnel thing.
No, I don't. The pain from having injuries and carpal tunnel and all that stuff comes into play when you practice, when there's not enough involvement, enough, energy to take your mind off it. So practicing gets to be more, more finicky. What you guys have problems with. I don't know. I feel weird talking about my problems because they're not that big. I just enjoy the musical part of my job the best. I wish I could do more of it. Because in a tour week, I might play on stage 10 hours. That's it, an entire week. And the rest, a huge percentage of the time is spent traveling, waiting, stressing about this, waiting in line to pay for free phone calls and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, next question. We go into the new recording, CD Bananas. And since you're probably playing for 10 years now in Berkeley yourself, you were a person yourself who was a change in the band. I mean, you replaced somebody. And recently you had another change in your keyboard player. And we actually want to know, how did it feel to record with Don Erie instead of John Lord for the new record?
Well, it was actually, it was easy. Don he's played with so many people, from Jethro Tull to Ozzy Osbourne, Coliseum, Gary Moore. Just he's a total pro, so it's effortless. You know, he knows what to do, and if I ever make a suggestion to him, he's already thought of that and just instantly knows what I'm talking about. And like I said, it's the easiest thing in the world. It's been a while since we recorded with John anyway. When we did our Abandon album, a lot of the writing and arranging sessions, he wasn't there because he was doing some solo thing, and then he came at the very end. So it was not it was not like we had recently, you know, sat down and worked a lot with John, and that's the reason John's going, is because he's got a lot of classical projects going on. He didn't leave in any kind of huff or with any problems at all. In fact, it was an agonizing decision for him. He was saying, well, I'd really like to stay home and write some of this stuff and do these little projects I've been putting off my whole life. And so he finally decided to do it. So he very graciously handed the baton to Don Airey, and it made it real natural because there was no hard feelings of any kind. And like I said, Don's a total pro. It made it easy. You know, if you can't work with a guy like Don, maybe you should be in a different business.
So is it a permanent replace?
As permanent as anything is in this life, everything changes by the day.
Sure.
But no, the band feels like it is.
Okay. So actually, then you probably answered the next question already. So Mr. Lord wasn't involved in the recording process at all, on the writing process for the new CD?
A couple songs we had done a couple years ago and had arranged them a certain way and made demos of them. And we wanted a producer to just settle all the arguments, so we gave a lot of power to our producer. Michael Bradford is a very, very smart, very musical guy too, and he's a good guy to make those decisions. And so he said, well, I like this and this, and let's change that. And so some of the stuff that we'd done with John, I think there was 2 songs. We changed them after his involvement was over, but I think they still credited him as being one of the songwriters. And then the rest of the stuff was just, the band responding to, dealing with the latest writing session.
Interesting. It's your turn, Eric.
Okay. The song I was wondering about, the song that pretty much surprised me the most about Bananas, was Contact Lost. And I know about the meaning behind the song. What I was wondering is about the way you played on there, because the first thing I thought, other than that it's a beautiful tune, is it sounds a lot like Mark Knopfler. Like very, very different, I thought. I'm familiar with pretty much everything you have recorded, and that was released officially. So was there, why do you think that is? Why is the song different on this tune?
Well, it's a very slow melody, and for me, a lot of times a slow melody lends itself to playing with fingers instead of. Sometimes it might be better to use your finger. You can get a nice rounder sound. And then this part. That was done with fingers. So I was, I pretty much didn't use the pick very much at all. There's just not much to the tune, technically. And then at the end, where I doubled the melodies, I used the pick for that, just to get a brighter sound. So maybe that's why it sounds, like I said, more like somebody like Mark Knopfler, because it's a very delicate melody, and I'm playing with my fingers and just trying to balance between distortion and some sustain and having too much distortion of feedback.
How did the song come together? I know about the meaning of it. It's a tribute to the astronauts who got killed in that accident. How soon after that did you decide to write a tune? Or did it just come to mind immediately?
I was watching my first exposure of that was on, we were getting ready to go to the studio. I was up in the morning watching on TV and going, can't believe that just happened. And they were, you know, that was the phrase. They said contact lost, and then they listed the time. And I had my guitar, you know, just in my lap like I do now, and I was just noodling along and just kind of amazed by it all, and I just started playing. So a little melody like that came up, and you know, I do that all day long anyway, so it didn't mean much to me at the time, the melody. But then the more I thought about it, on the way to the studio, I thought, you know, we should put that down. Because Michael often, if I was noodling around between takes, he would hear something and say, hey, that's nice. What was that again? I said, I don't know. Which one? He said, that second thing. I said, oh, okay. Let's record that. And so he would just record it and then put it on a DAT tape or something and then say, all right, now let's get back to the song. And so it was not unusual for us to record ideas that just would be gone in a second. So when I got to the studio, I told Mike, I said, I had this idea for just a little almost classical sounding progression from watching this thing happen on TV. We were talking about it, everybody was just freaked out by it. And so he said, well, let's put it down. And we put it down. He said, you know what would sound good? And Don was there, so he said that would sound good with you know, the keyboard stuff. And you know, Don takes about 3 seconds to learn it. And then Michael said, why don't you do that part at the end twice? I said, okay. We did it twice. And then he said, well, you know, it would sound good if you doubled this. And I said, yeah, I was thinking. So before we knew it, we had the shell of the song done. And, you know, I still at this point didn't think it was going to be on the album or used by Deep Purple. I just thought, you know, it was just something to remember.
And that was a live broadcast. It was not archive footage. So you pretty much wrote it exactly when, you know, shortly after it really happened, the accident.
Yeah. Shortly thereafter, and then I went. It was a couple hours until I went to the studio. It was just really weird. You know what happened was we got Kalpana's husband recently got the personal effects that they were able to identify, and in those personal effects were 3 CDs that we had signed when we saw them in Houston or Dallas. Houston. And one of them, the CD had melted into the case, but you could still see on the paper where the signatures were. It was incredible. And so he gave us those 3 CDs on little plaques with the information where the NASA team had determined, you know, the location, and they basically verified what it was. And yeah, we were at one of the gigs in Mexico. He traveled there just to give those to us. That was amazing. So I think 2 of them are going to a museum, and one of them I'm going to have for a while, be the custodian of.
One final question about the songs. The inclusion of contact loss is like the reason why the well-dressed guitar wasn't included, because a lot of people ask about that too.
Yeah, I'm not the one to ask about the well-dressed guitar. What I think happened was, since it was not a vocal tune, it got, you know, just less attention. We just kind of put it down, and we were so used to playing it live, nobody really paid too much attention to it. And at the end of the day, after we were gone, somebody was sizing up the album and thought, well, we got a lot of material here, and can we, what do we want to put here and there? And they just liked Contact Loss as the instrumental, maybe because it's shorter. I don't know. I don't know the exact reasons behind it. I know that Ian Pace wasn't happy with the way it turned out, you know, tempo-wise. That was a factor too.
Okay.
And rather than try to doctor it up or fix it up, they just, and that's fine with me because it was something that I wrote completely separate for a tour where Deep Purple, we were playing with the orchestra doing the concerto. Everybody in the band was supposed to bring in some solo material. I brought in Night Meets Light and worked with a very talented arranger from England to come up with a string arrangement, or basically an orchestra arrangement of Night Meets Light. Very difficult to play. We did it with Van and Dave there at the Royal Albert Hall, but then when we went on tour, without Van there, you know, to keep time, it got chaotic, and I didn't like it, so I just said, forget this, and so I wrote Well Dressed Guitar for that purpose. And so it's fine with me if it's not on the album. I just wish that Ian hadn't said it's going to be in the album for 2 years.
Okay. A lot of people.
That was embarrassing.
About that too.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a great idea to tell people it's on the album and then not put it on the album. But that's, you know, in any group, you got to realize, you know,
You want some water or some Morse?
No, I'm all right. I always talk this way. All right, let's do an edit point. In any group, what happens is you know, 5-man group, a good day will be getting your way 20% of the time. 5-man group with a producer and a manager and a record company and a booking agency involved, you might get your way 10% of the time. It keeps going down the more people get involved. So I understand that. That's no big deal. Plus it means I get to record it.
Okay. Ricky,
Go to major.
okay. Okay, what major?
Yeah, let's change topic here. And again, thank you so much for doing this so far. And we want to talk about Major Impacts too for a minute. So maybe you want to name some musicians you pay tribute to on the new CD on Major Impacts too.
Oh, okay. From memory.
Well, just maybe some key ones if you want.
Okay. The opening track is really unusual because it's entitled Wooden Music, which was a phrase I remember hearing Crosby, Stills and Nash talk about when they played live at Woodstock. And you know, it's kind of play on words. They're playing wooden acoustic guitars and they're playing at Woodstock. So he said, this is wooden music. And I thought that was pretty cool. And they're one of my favorite groups to listen to, even though they have, you know, it's not guitar heavy stuff. It's a vocal group. So I used two of my influences right there on that track. It's a very long track, but I'm trying to come across with a feel of something between Sweet Judy Blue Eyes and Marrakesh Express. So a lot of their music was very uplifting, energetic, but it sounded so smooth. And I don't know, just easy to listen to for me, but still, you know, energetic enough to be fun. So I used also the influence of Brian May to stack a lot of the guitars to get a chorus sound without singing, of course. And then just mixing in a little bit of the breathy percussive sound of the voice with that. So it's a strange blend to try to make it be an instrumental version of Crosby, Stills and Nash singing. So that was one of them. Another was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Not very guitar heavy, but just heavy. You know, Tarkus and that period of time being some of my favorite stuff. So I ended up actually playing the organ stuff, you know, on a keyboard, and then asking the computer to play it a little bit better, of course. But that was my plan. Well, my original plan was to get a hot keyboard player, and then I thought about, well, what the aim of the album is to me is to recall from memory, without studying any of the artists in recent times, what my influences were. What was it about these groups that that influenced me the most. And so to me, a lot of it was just the power of the quirky angular lines that Keith Emerson would play while he was adding Moog lines and organ things with his right hand. And so I just kind of did it myself. And let's see what else. Genesis around one of the songs I love was Abacab, which is why it's called Abracadabra. It just, I mean, sometimes, when you're coming up with titles, you just get what you get as the deadline draws near. And let's see, Aerosmith, with that kind of funky, slightly shuffling feel, from just got a little bit shuffle to it. And then The Who, using the keyboard with the filter modulation to where it sounds like where it sounds like almost like a sample and hold kind of done. But I did that with just with a regular synthesizer, and then I added some stuff like yeah, just so it's a combination of the feel of a few different Who songs.
Nice.
And there's Keep Going On. There's like the Hollies, Yardbirds kind of feel. The Carnaby Street poppy English stuff, and there's one tune that combines 3 different guitars. Randy California from Spirit, he did a lot of really neat, just fluid, creamy sounding, bending melodies that were harmonized in thirds and sixths, which I always liked. And then that goes to almost like a Ritchie Blackmore style, constant picking. Where every 16th note is picked, which reminded me of the solo in Highway Star, where it's, and then at the end it goes to Ted Nugent, which doesn't sound like Ted Nugent now, but it was just quotes of Ted Nugent's solos that really influenced me from the Amboy Dukes era, way before Cat Scratch Fever and all that stuff. That's another one. And then those are some of them.
I don't want to give you a hard time with this one. So, actually, which one do you think was the hardest song to get together? And maybe I can combine that with the next question too. The Steve Morse band, Dave LaRue, Mark Morgan, Steve, were they incorporated or involved in the writing? Maybe combining it all together. How hard was it to get the songs played?
Well, a regular Steve Morse band album would have Dave LaRue on bass and Van Romain on drums, to where I would almost write to the strengths of the players. This album, Major Impacts 2, is more like a work or a composition that's been handed to them. Here, play this. And so their involvement was very slim on that level, because the constraints were to make the songs sound like these artists that were influenced. And in order to do that, sometimes I had to write, like really boring bass lines and, just simple beats. It turns out they did some brilliant stuff with it, like Van coming up with all the percussion and wooden music, things like that. They were very surprising. But the bottom line was, I just didn't want to call it a Steve Morse band album, because it wasn't. It was a writing project.
Actually, that brings up an interesting point I would like to ask personally. When you handle your new material over to your band, how much writing credit do you usually give them for the songs? Would you say it's still a full Steve Morse song and I'm just having my drummer and my bass player playing the tune? Or where's your limit? Where's your turning point where you say, okay, this is a group song now instead of a complete solo song?
Well, it varies with different groups, that's for sure. Like for instance, Deep Purple went from whoever brings in the song, it's their song, to no matter if somebody brings in an entire song done, it's a band song. So it just varies with the climate at the moment. With the Dregs and Steve Morse stuff, it's basically who's writing the stuff, who's, and I would be, without meaning to, I almost can't help it but be very hands-on with that. I can't stop from saying, oh, change that. Oh, wait, here, try that now. And I'll edit as I'm learning it. I will change the part a little bit and say, oh, that sounded better. If you could just, why don't you try that in third position, and we'll change that note. Like try a E flat. Okay, yeah, just try that. And it's just a non-stop barrage, and they don't have a chance to get a word in edgewise about what the song's going to be like. So yeah, it's a Steve Morse song if I'm laying into it like that. And like with the Dregs, we've always talked about doing another album or something. And if somebody wants to bring in a tune like they have done for our live shows, then fine, that's their tune. I'll help if we need to arrange something. More than likely, everybody's done enough music in their life to where they don't really need any help. But if I help arrange a song, I don't think it's my song, and I never have. However, if I change a song and change a lot of the parts because somebody asked me to, and then get no credit, I feel kind of ripped off.
Sure.
And I wouldn't expect anyone in my band to have to endure that kind of thing. I include them in part of the publishing voluntarily, for the time they spend, sitting around while we're trying different arrangements.
So how good are the chances for a solo tour after the new CD's out?
The only chance for doing the solo tour is really going to be last minute things, because Deep Purple would have to be canceling some block of time for some reason, which does happen because we play a lot of distant destinations where if the manager doesn't get some measure of guarantee up front, he's just going to blow it off, because stuff happens, and you can imagine some of the stuff that happens when you combine business with language barriers and things like that. If something gets canceled, then I can do some last minute trio dates, which in fact I've already got some lined up that I'm waiting to see if something gets canceled or not, but I shouldn't talk about it till I know.
Yeah, hopefully, because you're probably the most busiest on-the-road guitar player that I have ever seen, because I'm following a lot of my heroes, and you're on the road consistently all the time. It's incredible.
Well, a lot of people, if they're stuck in a certain type of situation, they can't tour, because if you're in an 8-piece band and the economy's down just a little bit, or they're not buying that many tickets of what you're doing, you can't tour. And in fact, when I play with the trio, there's a very low break-even number that keeps rising each year because of the cost of traveling and lodging, rental cars, all that stuff, and paying the guys and everything. So I'm starting to see that some gigs we can't do anymore. There's markets that we just cannot play. It doesn't work. I have to pay to play, and I do pay to play sometimes because it's like a place I really want to do on a day off or something. So reality is, in this business, you're pretty lucky if you can work, and so I do consider myself lucky in that respect. I always wish I played more short tours and less long tours. That's my mantra till the day I die.
Well, as long as you play, we're happy. So.
Well, I want to spend time with my kids, on a more regular basis. But I enjoy the time. When I have time off, I'm home for a good stretch, like weeks at a time, and I can take them to school, pick them up from school, hang out with them, and be a super involved dad. But it's drastic, totally gone to super involved,
What are you listening to while you pick up your kids on the radio? Do you listen to rock music, or do you put something else on just to get a break from the music?
Man, I listen to that. Their one station that I love the most is SCAN. I press that, I see that button on a lot of radios. And I press it again if I hear something good. But, so I hear good songs, but I have no idea who did them. Because they never announce it. They never back announce anything. So, I guess I listen to, a lot of times just those weird, off-the-wall college kids doing their own shows, and they'll play some weird stuff that's pretty cool. And I like to listen to a lot of the contemporary Christian stuff because it is inspired and just very positive vibe, which I enjoy that. I mean, sometimes you can get a song that's like too much. It's okay, but the rock stations, I always check them out. They're included in my scan.
Maybe you know Spoke Oakman, the guy who does the monster truck thing. You ever heard the monster truck spots? He's a supporter. Since it's a charity thing, I have to mention our supporters who thankfully support us. This guy is doing radio spots for bands, and he has very low voice, and he helps us out. He does the monster truck and all these.
You mean he announces it?
Yeah, he's a voice talent. So I just want to give him credit right now since
I've watched a bunch of those, and there was one, I think, in my town in Florida. It was combined with maybe some the guys doing the extreme jumps on the motorcycles.
Yeah, maybe I heard one of these too.
Yeah,
anyways,
I'm into motorcycles and stuff like that, so I always watch that.
He sent me one of these spots, and it was something with motorcycles. Maybe I can email to you, then you can listen to it.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
I'll still in water for you just now.
Oh, fine.
Since Major Impacts 2 is another, I would call it like a concept album because you got a certain premise when you write.
Exactly.
Is there are you already writing for another Steve Morse band album without that premise?
Yeah, I'm always working on material for that, and I am at the moment actually. So that's next, I think. It's just a more typical Steve Morse Band album. Doing albums is not the same as it used to be. The internet and the MP3 phenomenon has changed the whole rationale of recording. So now you really, really would have to be clever or very lucky to make enough with an album to have the record company say they broke even. It's crazy and bizarre. When you're dealing with audiophiles and people who have very intuitive access to computers and their workings, and if that's your target audience, well, I can tell you it's very likely that things will be different these days, and they are.
Well, I'm just wondering, since we both are guitar players, and for me it helped me a lot, though. I mean, just to get some attention, find some audiences with it, because it's so hard to get the music out. I mean, in your case, of course, you're playing in a band that has been there for like 35 years now, and but in our case, we can reach the kids through the internet.
Well, I totally. For instance, I was one of the supporters of MP3.com. And I thought that was a great thing for people to have music available at a central location, to be able to check it out. Try before you buy. I'm totally in favor of that. It's the buying part that's not. But what I would do is I would make mixes of an album, with a little bit of this song, a little bit of that song, and make that one long piece. And then they would put it on mp3.com. Yeah. And that seems fine. That's at least you can try it out. What's the album like? Well, you can hear how it is.
How about the Dixie tracks? Any plans for touring once again, or even recording some stuff?
I think in 2003 we've already done 2 tours.
Okay.
Yeah, East Coast or West Coast. They're my old buddies. We hang out a lot.
But there are no definite plans to record anything, or like write tunes together.
If we do a recording, it's going to probably be everybody brings in a couple songs, kind of a compilation of solo material with a little bit of band stuff, just because of the time constraints. So we've talked about that. And I mean, again, part of the problem is pulling it all together. How do you take this amount of time and fly everybody to a central studio location to do that when the odds are that the record's just going to get stolen? You know, why do it? That's what the record company's saying. You know, they're saying, well, look at what's happened to every artist on our roster. Why should we keep doing this? You know, we're dying in red ink. You know.
Did you ever consider using the internet to support your songwriting? Because if you take a band like, for example, Miss Sugar, they write songs. They never meet up to write songs. They send MP3s or MIDI files to each other, which, you know, by email they don't have to be in the same country. And then
Sure.
they come together and everyone's prepared, knows the whole tune inside out, and records it.
Yeah, I think we've all done that. You know, used file compression and the internet to make it easy to communicate. That's for sure. That's the great thing about that kind of file compression.
One personal question from my side would be, how are your feelings about Sean Mann passing away? Did you ever meet him or play with him?
I did meet him, and you know, my friend Andy knew him pretty well.
Andy West?
Andy West, yeah, the bass player from the Dregs. And I thought he was a very nice, personable guy who's, very lyrical on the guitar. Basically, I just never had much contact with him or heard him play since that time. It was at a guitar player everybody plays for a few minutes kind of gig. But he sounded great, you know. I know he always sounds great. I've heard his recordings too. I hate for anybody to suffer in any kind of way, and you know, I feel for his family, and you know, for the fact that he, you know, his life and career got cut short. I mean, death is never anything that you can. I don't know. I can't say anything good about it. It's sad. That's all it is. Sad.
Yeah, we have a couple more.
Yeah.
We let you go. There's a rumor going on for a longer time now. There's going to be a John Petrucci and Steve Morse CD together with you guys. So, any updates? Any hints about that? Any plans?
Well, actually, John and I may have started that rumor because that was the plan. I mean, years ago, I went over to his house and we worked on a song, did a demo, and then we were on tour together. He stopped on the way up, and we recorded part of an idea for another song at my place. That's all we've got done so far. So, again, when you see that the only way you can feed your family is to go away and go on tour for an ever elusive bit that they call profit, which is what you use to feed your family, it gets harder and harder to find for a lot of touring entities, because like I said, the recording, any chance of recording income being there diminishes by the day with each high-speed internet connection that's made. So I don't know. It's they're on tour all the time. I'm on tour all the time, and so it's that much harder to get together.
So it's just a question of time, you would say.
Yeah.
But it's still in the makings.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm harping on this point because, you know, it does change things. The dynamics of the music business are changing, where, thank God, you know, people do go to gigs. That's the good part, because I think, you know, live music is becoming more and more rare as live looking productions become more predominant, you know, live looking multi, you know,
Actually, that's a funny that you mentioned that we have
multi-platform things.
Right, we have a lot of casting groups here, pop casting groups, you know, where people just get casted in like a talent show, gets like the American Idol thing.
Yeah.
We have like 10 of these right now running Pearl on different channels. So there's one famous one right now, it's called Pop Stars.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we're just guessing that some guy in the TV station who's behind the scene has actually he did, he put up some couple of Dream Theater songs while they were like showing snippets from the guys getting in arms, you know, shaking, yeah, we won, you know, blah, blah, and then they had like Dream Theater's music running back there. So we're just guessing that one reporter there is just making that on purpose to have the real message coming out.
Dream Theater, that's funny.
Actually, John Rudess just announced I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that you're going to play on his next upcoming solo CD. Maybe there's a chance he's actually saying.
Well, yeah, be it, you know, a little tiny solo or something.
Well, she's still great, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, it's, who knows? Jordan is amazing.
Yes.
You know, he played with the Dregs for a big chunk of our touring, and because we don't tour a lot, so it seems like he's been there for about 20% of the touring post breakup. He's fantastic, and you know, he's a great guy. His stuff is, you know, I have no idea what the song is going to be like. I just hope it's, you know, one that I can feel real easily. Because some of the stuff is just, whoa! You want me to do that on guitar, man?
Is that something you're going to do in person, or are you going to do that maybe through long distance recording, or what are your plans on that?
Yeah, all those kind of things that I've ever done are just, you know, FedEx.
Really?
Yeah. I played on Leona Boyd's album and those tribute things for Magna Carta, and lots of, you know, charity things where, yeah, that's, you know how it is when you got a little studio equipment there. Everybody's always sending stuff. That's cool. I love Jordan, you know, that's great.
Yeah, I met him a couple of times. He's fantastic. I mean, he's just phenomenal on the place. You know. But I heard his last solo CD, what you played on, what you consider just a small solo.
Yeah.
I mean, we have just to record you dropping a pig, and I record that and put that in a song. It would work too. So we have 2 more questions.
Sure.
Actually. That's my personal one, though. You can have the last one. I take this one. Okay. Yeah, Steve. Just imagine you have a time machine. Like
Oh no.
time jumping machine for just one day.
On a remote island with 3 albums.
No, a time machine.
Okay.
And you can put yourself into that device, and you can jump through different decades if you want to, like different time periods. And you can have, for instance, if you like him, a breakfast with Mozart in the morning, and having dinner with Jimi Hendrix. So just jump in what time area you want to, and pick a couple of artists you would like to spend your day for whatever reason. It can be a other person. It doesn't have to be music related at all. Whatever you want to do with it.
Man, too bad it's not a difficult question. I already have a pat answer for this. Let's see. I don't know. I can't consider everything, so I have to speak off the top of my head, you know, stream of consciousness, which is how a lot of politicians get in trouble. Maybe I should reconsider this. Okay, first of all, you know, like my early guitar heroes, I would love to be there when, say, Jimmy Page was working on Black Mountainside, you know, on the acoustic guitar, and say, whoa, Jimmy, I got a great second part for that. I'll play the second part. And Jeff Beck, when he did like Beckola or Truth, I just like to be there and just see how it happened, that he was so fluid and clever. And luckily I was there at a lot of these guys' performance, but you know, as an audience member sitting there being amazed, I would love to have you know, everybody wants jam with Clapton and Hendrix and, you know, stuff like that, when before, you know, they've been through everything that is involved with the music business and gotten, you know, any measure of being jaded. But I did get to do one of the things I always dreamed about. That's to play with John McLaughlin, who's one of my big influences. And actually, I mean, I sort of feel like I'm getting to do this right now. I'm getting to do something that is pretty amazing. I don't feel so deprived, you know, not having my time machine, because I get to play with great players, you know, just about every day. And, you know, real gigs, real rock and roll gigs, huge rock and roll gigs, often.
Yeah, I mean, you play G3 all the time, right? With the guys from G3.
Oh, I sat in with them a couple times. That's
phenomenal.
I never got to do those tours because Deep Purple's always gone, you know.
Well, actually, that's the question right there. When are you finally going to do a G3 tour as being the third 3G, whatever?
Well,
People asking for this all the time.
yeah, it's
I know.
you know, everything you do has consequences, and one of the consequences of getting with Deep Purple, which I was reluctant to get with any band, you know, you have to put everything else schedule-wise second. And as a result, by not being able to take a big block of time and say, okay, I can do this tour, I can never do the tour.
That's the good use for the time machine.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't join Deep Purple, do a 3G3 tour, then go back and join them.
You had such a better answer than me.
Okay.
I want to steal your answer. If I had a time machine, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd go home after every gig, and I'd tour more often, and we get to play with every band.
Awesome.
Every bunch of musicians that has ever said, hey, we should do this. Yeah, I would. I'd do all those albums. I'd do all. That's great. I like that.
Be Kirby, you want to be Jesus later on. Be Bill Gates and all that stuff, you know. Just go nuts on it, whatever.
I would love, you know, yeah, that's and awesome stuff.
One question from a fan. Actually, I don't know if this is an inside joke, but Tommy asked me to ask you. He actually asked me to ask you this 4 times, but I'm just going to ask it once. Since you're on tour and you get to practice, what is a good way of practicing with, you know, with full attention on it, without getting distracted?
Oh, what's a good way to practice to put your full attention? I think it's to play music rather than exercise. I get bored with the exercises, and one of the pieces I have on the new album is a great exercise, which is no coincidence because I like, you know, I write things just to focus my thinking, and it's written in the style of Bach, the way he would write, almost like a viola etude or something like that, and what I'm doing there is just alternate picking, of course. It looks, it's hard to actually do that, and it's if you were just to do an exercise, you know, you would get distracted. You start talking to people and you know, reading a book. So by making a musical piece, I think you combine the difficulty of the exercise with you have to pay attention to it to make it musical. Like when it goes up. You know, putting little dynamic changes in and stuff like that, which, you know, you can only do by paying attention to it. So I love the idea. I really learned about musical studies from playing classical guitar, where it's a tradition, hundreds and hundreds of years of traditions of composers writing little musical blurbs that feature a recurring technical problem. You know, whether it's this arpeggio pattern over and over, or a lot of trills, or tremolo. Whatever it is, they focus on that one problem and then make one little piece of music around it. So I love that idea, and so that's why I write my own little studies.
One other question that was sent to me this morning actually was from someone from the Steve Morse list, and the question is, would you ever consider, I don't know if you heard about it, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai both are releasing an analogy album, like a compilation of older tunes or rare tunes. Would you ever consider?
Sorry.
Would you ever consider doing something like this? Because there are some tunes that people would like to hear, but they can't. For example, Morning Star is a tune. I know it's a MIDI song, but people would like to hear it on a CD. You heard a lot about it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
a mix of the best of with some rare tracks or the Christmas tracks from the Windham Hill records.
That would be great. What I find is every time, and it's been at least 3 times, every time I get somebody interested in pursuing that, they start off with, oh yeah, I'll just go get those licenses for those tunes. The next thing you know is they're surrounded by pieces of paper and faxes, and you know, their hair's being pulled out, and they say, can you believe how much this record company wants just to use it? Well, I got these other guys, they won't even return my, what? And they all pretty much give up. Like the Steve Morse DVD I did, this SECTS, Sext, Dregs, and Rock and Roll. That I sent a box full of video, different video. I'd love to have all of this be on the DVD. So no problem, I'll just go get the licenses for it, you know, get the permissions. Some of the stuff you can't get permission for. Some of the stuff they won't give permission for. The rest of it, they have such a convoluted requirement. Well, we'll let you know after our League of Affairs gets together in 2005. And just, it became down to people say, well, how do you decide what to put on the DVD? There was no decision. It was just the only stuff we could get.
Okay, I think, we have the final question, of course. First of all, thank you so much for this. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
It's an honor to talk to you. Is there any chance that we can get Steve Morse to play at one JemFest in the future, maybe next year in Orlando? Actually, we got John Finn this last June. He played there.
John is great.
And I saw him opening for you last year, or 2001, I think, for the Dixie Breaks. He played in Boston. And yeah, we officially want to invite you, of course.
Well, thanks. As you may have gathered from the interview.
Maybe you can sign MP3 with some plenty and play it
There
there.
you go. In fact, we could just do a rip from one of the albums, paste it in. No, I can't schedule anything. You won't believe some of the great stuff I've been offered to do. I mean, that would just, one-off things, and the answer is always the same. I just kind of fall like in this pose, looking at my feet and going, I wish I could tell you, but I can't tell you, so I don't know.
We had 3 JemFests now in Germany, in USA, and in the UK. Actually, the USA is the first one I have to mention. So at least there's a triple chance.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I do a lot of charity work for. I mean, that's not a conceptual problem. It's just time. And a lot of people think, well, this tour ends and this tour starts. There's some days in between. You have time. I said, well, one of the charity organizations is my kid. I want them to feel like they have a dad, even though a lot of times they don't. So it's tough. Scheduling is it's a monstrous hurdle. In fact, that's the single biggest stressful thing in my life. I don't fear death as much as I fear a long tour. like them all now.
Well, it's T-shirt time. I better get the T-shirt from Mr. Morse. It's on the left and on the other.
It's going to be presented with.
You want XLL? Was it?
L, smaller.
Yeah, sticker. So this is JemFest music with John Finn.
Ah,
Yeah, make a snapshot.
oh, where? This is the Orlando one.
Yeah. And you got the sticker for you.
Okay, thanks.
So, all the way on the guitar. Oh, sorry. All right. That's it from my side.